Hello again, Dave Kites from the Oto Wood Shop. I'm going to make a short video tonight to show you a new circle cutting jig for the Grizzly bandsaw, the 14-inch Grizzly bandsaw, which cuts circles as small as 5 inches in diameter and up to whatever you can manage. I've made a new jig because we had two old ones, and they're over here. If you can just show them for a second, Ben. This has been here a long time. It's just a board with some cleats on it that will hold it in place on the table of the bandsaw, and then you measure from the blade and drill a hole for the radius that you want and put a 1/8 inch hole in there, and then there's a drill bit used, for example, as a pin, and you put your piece on there after you cut it so that one point on the edge is exactly the distance that you want the radius to be. Otherwise you can't fit it on there because it bumps into the blade. So you have to make that special cut at least one place, plunk it on there, and then you rotate it and it cuts. Okay. This jig I made, and it's quite complicated. It is elaborate, I guess is the right word. It has scales to help you set your all this stuff to set your radius, and it'll go to quite a large circle, but it takes quite a bit of setup to put it up on the saw and adjust it and get it to work right. It has cleats to hold it, but it's got also things to hold it in place on the saw. It has an adjustment to make sure that your pin line is in line with the front edge of the saw blade, which is important, and that makes it cut more efficiently. And so it's a good jig, and it worked, but it was pretty complicated to set up. It also wasn't real robust. It's got some pretty fine mechanics in here, little pins and little slides on aluminum tracks and so on. So I'm not sure if people really did use it, although they didn't because it was too complicated, and I don't blame them. If they did use it, it might not hold up real well. The new one is more robust. It still has the adjustment to get the blade lined up with the pin line, and it will cut the excess material. You don't have to make that preliminary cut of the exact radius at least one place on the board. So you don't have to do that. So with all that said, let's go through the steps to put it in use and cut a circle, and you'll see how it works. It's going to be stored on the shelves where those were stored, behind the drill press on the low shelf to the right of that shelf unit on the wall over there. Okay, so when you come in the shop, you're going to find, hopefully, the saw here with the fence on it. So you got to remove the fence. Okay, and you want to raise this up so it's out of the way so you can get the jig on. And that's all you really need to do to get the saw ready. Okay, so then you go get the jig, and you bring the jig somewhere where you can work on it. Now I'm going to show you how the jig is made. The jig's made in two parts, and the bottom part has these cleats which are going to fit in the miter slot and on the edges of the table and hold the whole thing in place on the saw. It has two knobs underneath here. This knob with this board here is the adjustment to set the pin line where your pivot pin is, so that it is directly in line with the front edge of the blade. The blade can move back and forth a little bit depending on where it rides on the wheel. So if we change the blade and the new blade is a little different, it might not run exactly the same place on the wheel. So you can make that fine adjustment with this. I'll show you how to do it when we do it, but that's the little black knob. The big knob is the one that you use to tighten the slide in the right place. The way this works is after it's up on there, the blade is like here, you're going to measure and you're going to move this slide back and forth till this pin is the radius distance away from the blade. And then you're going to tighten the slide in place. And then you've got your measurement done. That's the size circle you're going to get. Then you're going to take your piece of wood, you're going to drill an 1/8 inch hole in it in the right place. Not exactly the right place, but drill a hole in it, plunk it on here, and then the motions will cut the excess wood and then cut the circle. So let's see how it works. The big feature here is that it slides apart like this. So now this base part, you take over and you make this slot go this way, and the base piece, this part, sits down on the table. And the cleat went in the miter slot, and the cleat went on the outside front and back, and it's in place. It's on there solid. This now slides back and forth this way. So what we can do is we'll slide it over here, and we'll look at the pin line and we'll see, oh, it's a little bit behind the front edge of the blade when I look at it this way. Well, it's really close. If it wasn't really close, I would loosen this black knob and I would move this till I got it in line with the front of the blade. And then I would slide this block of wood. You remember that piece of cherry you saw underneath there? That's held by the black knob. You'd slide that until it touched the bottom piece, and then you'd lock it in place with the black knob, and then your stop is set. Your stop is set so that we plunk our piece on here with the hole in it, and the extra wood is all over here. And then we push it in, and it saws the extra wood, and it comes to the stop when this is lined up with that. And then you just rotate it, and it cuts the circle. Okay? So we'll do that. But first, we're going to, let's say we want to make a 6-inch circle. This saw will only go down to 5 inches in a continuous cut because of the width of the blade and the thickness of the blade. It'll only cut down to a 5-inch diameter circle. Other than that, it binds up. So we loosen the big knob, and now our slide moves. So I'm going to set that at, I put this end of the ruler at the blade edge, right on the blade edge, and I set this pin at 3 inches, and now I'm going to make a 6-inch circle for sure. And I'm tightening up the big knob, so now the slide doesn't go back, it's locked, okay? So we set it. Slide this back out of the way, this way, so you got room for your excess material. You take a piece of whatever stock you got that you want to be making this hole in, get an idea of about where to put a hole in it by, I like to set a compass. You can do it with just a ruler, but I like to set a compass at about 3 inches. Doesn't have to be exact, because all I want to do is get an approximate circle where I can approximate the center where I can say I'm going to get my circle from. Okay, so yeah, so it's right about there. That's all I wanted to do. So now I got to make a quick hole in there. Could have done that before. Hand drill's fine, or drill press, but you need a hole, and the pin is 1/8 of an inch, so you need 1/8 of an inch hole. Just real quick, we'll make one. Done. Now I should clean up, but we're making a video, so we're not going to clean up right now. Okay, so to find the pin, I take a smaller bit. This is 7/64, I think, and I put it on top of the 1/8 inch pin, drop the board down, bring it up so it's level, and boop, it pops right on, see? So now it's there, and I got this extra material, and I didn't have to make a cut exactly 3 inches or anything, okay? Because now, you see, I can just hold this steady, push it in, and when it hits the stop, then I rotate the board and I'll cut my piece. But this is not going to make it through here, okay? So what we have to do, we can't have any excess away from the pin more than this much. It won't clear through the saw. This part has to rotate through the saw. So that is, for your info, 13.5. It's a 14-inch bandsaw, but that's the diameter of the wheel. Doesn't mean you got 14 inches in here. The diameter of the wheel is 14. It's 13.5 in there. So you wouldn't want more than, say, 13 inches of excess material away from the pin. And so I'm just going to make a quick cut. Here's 13. So I can be way down there. So I'll go cut this off and then we'll be ready to run. Okay, so we cut away the excess. Should work. I got a little bit left here. I didn't cut that corner off. Let's see what happens. Might not make it through. Now we want to open the vacuum before we start the saw. And of course you got to have the big blower on, which is currently running. So we're good there. Make sure nothing's up against the blade. Get your guides down fairly close to the work, and you should be ready to go. First you push in till the stop, then you rotate the work. Now at this point, pulling on this only pulls right here on the circle. And the circle is what we really want to have being moved. So it's better to make the circle move. We got our circle, and it matched up quite well. Pretty round. That's that. So then you can cut, you know, whatever else more you need. So it slides like so. Now it will slide completely off. I didn't put a stop in it, so don't pull it all the way off. Leave it on there. You shouldn't have much more excess than that. And takes up the excess, then you rotate. When you get near the end, turn the circle instead of pulling on the circle with the other piece. The circle might try to lift up or something if you're pulling on the edge of it instead of holding it down and rotating it. That is a better thing to do. So there you go. So to take it off, you have to pull the slide back so that this clears the blade, and then you've got to lift it up so the cleats clear and go out that way, and then close it up. You can put the slide back or not. The slide will go out to here. I did build a stop into it, so it'll go out to here, so you can cut this radius, which is about 13 inches. So you can cut a 26-inch, about a 26-inch diameter circle with this jig, and down to 5, but that's limited by the saw, not by the jig. So back in there, tighten this up, put them back on the shelf. So that's jig CC, the circle cutting jig for the 14-inch Grizzly bandsaw.